All right. So, hey, everybody, I am Darcy. I am the creator of the Vibrant Woman course and community. I am here today with my beautiful friend, Juliana. We are going to talk about all of the different ways to become a vibrant woman. And I just want to explain two things for a second. Full disclosure, I am ovulating today and I have very limited access to my verbal cortex. So I'm kind of stuttery and not very fluent. So there's just that. And the other thing is, I knew when I created this program about women becoming their most vibrant selves, overcoming burnout, learning how to listen to their bodies and the wisdom coming through their bodies to direct them on movement and food and nutrition, exercise, sleep, all of these things that are so important, that the wisdom comes from within them. I knew when I was creating this that I wanted to share examples of the most vibrant women I knew, the women in my life that inspire me and uplift me and remind me of the things that really matter. And so when I decided to create this interview series, the very first person that popped in my mind was my friend Juliana. So I'm going to share her with you today. We're going to talk a little bit about how she defines herself and what I find so vibrant about that. Juliana is, here's a list of labels, right? So she is a woman, a mother, an immigrant, a writer, a creator, a teacher, an activist, right? So there's so many labels, Juliana, I could use for you. And I think the best thing to do is just to turn this over to you and invite you to introduce yourself. Do any of those labels resonate more than others? I know you have a new label. You're a fiance now. So yeah, would you just take a minute to introduce yourself the way you like to do that and tell us about you?
Yeah, so my name is Juliana, as Darcy said, and I definitely connect with those labels, but I don't know that I see myself connecting more with one label over the others. I really view myself as just, if you could take someone's identity and turn it into a mosaic or a tapestry, I would see myself as existing within that tapestry, and every little part makes me up. So I definitely identify just with one label. Doesn't seem or complete enough to encompass all of who I am. So that's how I think about that.
Brilliant. Yeah. I knew you were going to bring this artistic edge to looking at this. And that's one of the reasons why, like I said, you were one of the first people that came to my mind and someone that I wanted to talk to and share with my community, because I feel like what happens so often, it happens with people for sure. But I feel like women are in this special crossfire where we are really looking to be approved of or accepted in the world in ways that sort of force us into these boxes. And I feel like we're all in a lot of boxes that are even invisible. We don't recognize we're in there. And so I feel like part of taking our empowerment back and being able to listen to our inner wisdom and follow it has to do with sort of the courage that comes from being able to question, what labels will I take on? Which roles really fit me? And I just love how you said that. And it's so obvious in the way you live. Did I say activist? I feel like there's so many labels for what the work I've seen you do in the world. Yeah, that put together that tapestry. Make you such a good example of vibrant living. Do you want to share your story just a little bit? Your story is a bit of an overcoming story, I think, which is really uplifting for people to hear. Would you share it?
Yeah, definitely. So was born in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, and into a very poor family. And my mother, against all odds, was able to make her way here to America. And eventually she brought me over. I must have been 7 at the time. And definitely I had a very challenging time adapting to American culture. I felt very isolated and very misunderstood in general. I was a sensitive kid, so that definitely presented its challenges. I would say that, like many immigrants, though, I had to learn how to adapt and how to survive. And so I made my way in this world as well as I could, but I would say it definitely wasn't until my late 20s, around the time that I got pregnant, that I began to connect with myself in a more authentic, embodied way. And that's when I really started awakening. I think that we all strive for this awakening. For me, that's when it began to happen.
Mhm.
So, definitely I feel like I had to go through some life experiences first, and I should mention that, along with immigrating to America, I also had some traumatic childhood and teenage year experiences when I was 17, and you know made my way through college, and of course went through other struggles. So, but eventually I landed at this place where I was able to do spiritual work and really delve into my own personality, my psyche, and unconscious, and my dreams, my body, and just all of these things that helped me start moving towards a fuller realization of who I am.
Mhm. Yeah, that's beautiful. You articulate it so well too. I love how you really refer back over and over again to the body, embodiment practice, coming back to yourself, really learning who you are, as a person in this body. And it's interesting you say that happened kind of um, as you stepped into motherhood.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think about that? Do you think there's a connection there? Could it have happened before or differently? What do you think?
Definitely, there were brief moments, but I would say that when I became pregnant, a lot of my past started rising up in a much more, psychic, energetic way. And I really wanted to delve into those spaces so that I would be ready for motherhood. And it really just linked me to my own femininity, my own trauma, my own spirituality, my dreams, my fears. It was a moment of really profound realizations and self-awareness and depth and spiritual work, and so I had all of these things rise to the surface, and I had two choices: to turn away from that or to turn toward it and embrace it, the good and the bad, the dreams and the nightmares. I had to and I think that that's part of, we talk about embodiment and we talk about awakening and vibrancy. I think that it's important to recognize that we need to face everything that's within us, and that really uncomfortable and unsettling and ugly, but we do need to look at that in order to find the gold within ourselves, in order to find souls, which I think, can sometimes be buried beneath, just these shadows, right?
Right. Mhm.
Shadows steal. And so, that's how I approach my own growth is, curious about those shadows and not shying away from them.
Yeah. It takes a lot of courage, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this and I wanted to be very real and very honest. Like this, if women want to be vibrant and authentic and real, it definitely, you definitely have to step into that space. There's no way to separate the two. If you want the presence, if you want the extreme embodiment and the joy, you need to, in my mind at least, I can't speak for everyone, but I do think that you need to find a way to delve into those uncomfortable places, as scary as it is, and as hard as it can be, because it makes you look at yourself in a way that can be unsettling.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So I just want to talk a little bit about the ways that you found to do that inner work. I know writing is a big part of that journey for you. So I would love to hear a little bit about how that process might look for you, or if there are other practices that you also embrace, to take a look at the wholeness of who you are and then find a way to to name it, to be at peace with it? Do you have things besides your writing, or how does that look for you?
Definitely. I would say that I have a number of practices. I definitely write. It's therapeutic for me. It allows me to explore, a different way of being in the world. I think a lot of literature, a lot of what's written out there is very surface level or deals more with the intellect and the mind. And I'm very interested in writing from a place that is more spiritual, is deeper, is more embodied. So I think that a lot of work takes on that quality. In addition to that, though, my practices have shifted over time, but I used to do quite a bit of energy work, and I was very interested in dream analysis, dipped into Jungian analysis, and um, other modalities of spiritual presence, and eventually that morphed. And I would say that these days, what really connect with more is, I would say meditation, definitely a more embodied, present type of walking, or you could call it meditational walking, just any way that I can find to experience my world in a very present and embodied way. I think that the more we can do that, the more we can feel ourselves taking space and existing within space, the cooler and the richer we feel, and the more accepting, resilient we become against life's challenge. All about holding that space with grace and awareness present, even when we're hit with really challenging things.
It's so interesting you say that, because right before we hit record, I actually had a moment of pull back into some of the challenges I'm facing in my life right now too, right? And I said to you, I have to breathe for a minute. I have to come back into this space because when those challenges surface, if we don't have deep roots, it's very easy, right, to be taken away, to be swept away into them.
Yeah.
Very interesting you say that. And I love what you say about taking up space. I think for women, especially culturally and traditionally, this is a challenge, because aren't women always taught to be quiet, be nice, be small, we've been basically trained to not take up much space. And whether we like it or not, those messages kind of live on in our DNA. So in some ways, this is a personal self-healing, but it really is an act of revolution to say, you know what, I deserve, to take the time that I need, to take the breath that I need, right? Just to take the space that I need, physical space or emotional space.
Yeah,
right?
definitely have that space, and to have, to feel safe within that space, and to feel like worthy enough to own that space, to be with space. I think that's really hard. And also to feel like you can be whatever you want to be in that space. You can be your authentic self, whatever that, and that's going to look different for everyone. I really do think that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Related to that, I want to ask you another question. You talk about mindfulness and mindful walking. Do you have a favorite way to move your body? Has it changed over time? I know you've done dance and all kinds of different things. So I just wonder.
Definitely, I tend to love movement that helps me connect with my spiritual and creative sides. And dance and yoga are the two that come to mind. Walking is also, just beautiful for the presence that it can provide with, but dance provides me with a sense of creative movement, and yoga provides me with a sense of a more spiritual movement, and both of them feed me in very different ways. But I think that, I also do, more rigorous workouts sometimes. I love doing like a very intense HIIT workout, do some weightlifting, but definitely I recognize the different ways that my body responds to different types of workout. Like sometimes I'm feeling particularly sad or heavy, or something's weighing on me. My body is begging for slower movement, more intentional movement, soothing movement, and so I really try to listen to that Now, if I'm like feeling like very up and light and vigorous and like I have that kind of like, quick, intense energy, then I'm like, all right, I'm ready to work out. I'm ready to lift some weights, And so I think that that sort of self-awareness really feeds me. Like if I need to slow down, I slow down. I'm like, I'm just going to take a walk today, you know, and yeah, if I want to amp it up, then I amp it up and it feels amazing. So I think it's always about allowing for your body to lead you and for your instincts to lead you. Not, you talked about labels earlier. I don't like to label myself as just a dancer,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
yoga. Like I want to open myself up to different, forms of physical activity that speak to me, you know, in different ways at different times. Yeah.
Yeah, like the body is just this beautiful conduit. It's a way to let the energy flow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let the energy move through, and that energy it comes through differently, different times.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, I do the same thing. It's one of the key components to I'm just going to pitch here for a second. My Vibrant Woman course is coming up in January, and the participants are going to get this whole module on movement. And I don't call it exercise for a very important reason, because a lot of us have these concepts of what we think that is, and embedded in there is always this little myth of no pain, no gain, or and like, and who are you doing that exercise for? Like, is it so that you can look a certain way, so that you can be loved by someone else? And there's all of these issues sort of wrapped up in exercise for women in our culture, and so I call it movement for a reason.
Yeah.
Allowing the energy to move through you, allowing your body to move, and like you said, Juliana, paying attention to how does it feel? How do you feel? What does your body want? Do you have, so do you have any specific practices to sort of get in touch with what your body wants? There are some people we talk to who are like, just feel your body, just tune into your body and see what it wants. And some people are like, if you haven't practiced that, they're like, how do I know what my body wants? So you mentioned meditation as well. How do you sort of know which workout you're going to do or how you want to move it?
Mm. It definitely feels more intuitive to me, but I will say that, I do spend time tapping into different parts of my body. So, there will be moments throughout the day where I really want to connect with my breathing and how my breathing is rising up, how my, and a lot of times I'll find that my breathing is shallow. And so I become more
Mhm.
about that.
Mhm.
I may tap into to how my chest feels and how my heart feels. I just tap into the subtle sensation, in my hands, and, sometimes even get deeper into that and feel this sort of like electricity or energy in my hands. Or I might try to feel my legs and my feet and how those ground into the earth. And I really try to feel the earth lifting me and holding me, you know, kind of like, especially when I'm out walking in nature, like it's a net, that I can sink into. Or I'll tap into the way my back is feeling and any pain or discomfort I might have in there. So just really tapping into different parts of your body when you can. And there's something soothing about that. Like, I'm here, I feel myself, I'm safe. It's almost like being intimate with yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people don't take the time to be intimate with themselves that way, give themselves that very connected, you know, bonding experience. We need to learn to bond with ourselves, and I think enough of that. So I think that I think that that definitely helps me to, get in touch with my body when I need to, so that then it just becomes more intuitive. I sense it, I feel it, I know it. It's like sensing the rain. I mean, you learn to sense the difference in your body and what
Yeah.
it's asking for, what it needs, and what it doesn't need. You know what I mean? In the
I
same way,
totally.
yeah.
Go
And
ahead.
we're so distracted by our world and external factors, and we live in such a fast-paced society that we just forget to do that. But all you're doing is turning towards yourself again and again. And yeah.
Yeah, that reminds me too. I love how you've just articulated all of that so beautifully. You said, you know what I mean? I do. I live this way too. That's why these conversations are so important to have, because um, just just making that more normal, making that, the way a way to live with peace at your body. And I love what you said, connecting with ourselves and becoming intimate with ourselves. As a woman who has been single and who is now engaged, do you want to talk for just a minute about how that really is the primary relationship? Has that been your experience, that you had to really find yourself um, and bond with yourself?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So I really believe that if a woman, I think, there are women out there who are very unhappy and dissatisfied in their relationships, and they meet these partners who aren't emotionally available, or who, have avoidant behaviors or any of these things, right? There's so much written about it. They have some sort of attachment issue. Everyone has their problems, and I recognize that. But I do think that in order for women to, we're just talking about women here, but in order for them to meet their one, whoever that happens to be, that work is necessary. I think that it's important to connect with your own needs and what it is you need in a relationship in order to hold steady in that space, and to not compromise that vision, right? Like, there are many times when I'm dating when I could have compromised my vision, but I knew that I wanted to meet somebody that would have, all these connections that I have to myself, really, a spiritual connection, a physical connection, an intellectual connection, an emotional connection, and a part of me was like, there's no way, and I find somebody who would like fulfill one or two of those connections, but in no way would they fulfill all of these connections I wanted. But I didn't want to compromise my own sense of worth, and just this vision I had, all of these different connections that would feed me and that fit with who I am. And so, I kept turning people away. And I'll be honest, eventually I reached this point where I thought I'd rather be alone and just be happy with various connections I have with myself if I meet somebody who fulfills me in all of these ways. It felt that important to me. So I do think that women definitely need to have a strong awareness of the different connections that they want, and um and also which needs they want fulfilled, and to hold true to that, to not let go of that, and not to settle, and not to excuse, you know just behavior that doesn't feel right.
It brings a really interesting issue up too. Like, how do you know when you find that in someone else if you haven't already experienced it in yourself? Like, how would you even know that's a match? If you haven't taken the time to experience that with yourself first.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question, and I do think that there are fortunate few that if they haven't connected to those parts of themselves, they might get lucky and meet somebody who that within them. That could happen, but I do think that is rare. I think that that's challenging, and I think that as women, I'll be honest here, I think that as women, we need to guide that process.
Yeah.
That we have the wisdom, we have that feminine wisdom, we have that energy, we have these moon qualities that I think really means that we have to guide that process. We live in a culture where men are very disconnected from their emotional selves, and they, unless they've, joined men's groups or done that sort of work on their own, really do need guidance in that space. They really do need feminine wisdom, in a way that culture just hasn't supplied them. What I really do feel that. And so I do think that as a woman myself, I and I'm definitely not speaking for all women, because we all have, different, different missions, but, I do feel that my mission, or something that I am doing, that I am doing, is just connecting with my more emotional nature, with my more feminine nature, and using that as a source of power.
You know what this brings up for me is this reminder of this story. Have you heard this story? So we tell the story in our culture about how the sperm are, the sperm are the little active agents. In other words, this whole male driven, action oriented model that like, we're just here, women are passive. And so, the egg, when a woman ovulates, the egg is just passive, and this sperm swim competitively, try to outswim each other, to get there and be the first one to plant their flag and make their creation, whatever. So there's that whole version of like how creation happens. And actually, scientifically, we know now none of that is really true. The egg is the active component in this story. Like, she emits the energy, she sends out this signal. Even the sperm that gets there first may not be the one that she lets in. Once she decides which one she wants to let in, the egg actually has the power to sort of rewire, reconfigure some of the genetic components there, like to make sure, that this creation is what she intended, right? So this whole sort of flipping the story on this creation myth and the power that women have.
I love that. And that's the thing, like, women are very powerful, but we've been trained to think that the only way we can own our power or our strength is by mimicking male behavior. And that's absolutely not the case. We, definitely qualities may overlap, but we have a different sort of strength that I think we haven't owned enough, and that's what we need more of, is owning that wisdom, that femininity. And that could look different to people, but definitely, what does it look like? I think every woman needs to ask herself, what does my femininity look like? What does woman mean to me? How do I want to embody my own sense of womanliness? I think we need to ask ourselves that.
I love it. I love it. I knew we were going to go deep. We just had to take a minute to get there. This leads me to one of the questions that I really had planned to ask on my interviewees as well. It's a question I ask all the clients that I work with. And don't mistake the word most here. I'm going to ask you, what is it you love most about yourself? But I want to frame that question. It's not like a competition, like what's your greatest, most powerful quality? What I'm really asking here is, first, for us to pay attention to what we do love about ourselves, because it's so easy to make the list of things we think we need to fix or change, right? So I want to start spinning that story. What do you love most about yourself? And I just want to normalize this stop finding fault with each other, with ourselves. So could you, out of all these things we've talked about, what would you say is the one thing that you just find yourself most in love with about the woman you're creating, who you are?
Of course, I have different, I have a few different choices there. One that really seems to be standing out for me, it would be my soulfulness, my ability to connect with my soul in this very empowering and powerful and meaningful and sincere way. I think that so many of us shut down our own connection to our souls, and we lose ourselves, we disconnect, we disassociate. And that's when we need to start learning, how do I get back there? How do I get back home? How do I get centered? How do I open myself up in such a way I feel the bliss moving through me? I feel the joy. I feel the connection to myself. I know I'm home, and I feel like what that requires is a sense of soulfulness. And I do think that once you're in that space, it allows you to become more embodied. you connect with your body in a way that feels right. You know, you're not connecting it through these superficial means. You're connecting in this very soulful, authentic, real way. You know, you're presenting, you're connecting with who you really are. And I do feel like I have that ability, you know, and that I've really strived to strengthen that connection over time. And I strive to let it come through in my writing, you know, or my connection with people, or my teaching, or whatever it may be. And it's a beautiful thing. It gives me this type of inner peace and joy that I don't think anything else could. It's internal. It's definitely internal.
Yes, but it radiates out of every cell of your being, and it radiates out of every interaction you have. And like I said, that's the reason I knew you were the first person I wanted to talk to with these interviews that I'm doing. I love hearing that from you.
Thank you.
So I think we have enough time left. You know, speaking of that soulful connection, your writing, I have had the privilege. So we could talk about this too. Juliana is published in many places. And I know are you querying? Are you seeking an agent now for your work, or how's that going?
Yeah, so I've been in contact with an agent, and she is interested in a verse novel that I am working on. It follows the lives of 3 women, multi-generational story, and their struggles. It takes place still, and it's, you know, based very, very loosely on my grandmother's, my mother's, and my own experiences. And it's, you know, it is on so much of what we're talking about, actually. And, you know, every time I dip back into it, I just connect with something else, part of me and who I am, or what I've seen and what I felt. And I just want to bring that to the surface. And it's very experimental, honestly. I wanted to write it in a very feminine, unstructured, non-patriarchal way. And so what I found myself doing pretty intuitively was removing punctuation and removing capitalization, and just allowing to take as much space on the page. And so it's a story, but it moves like a poem, and it also moves without these patriarchal constructs of language. You know, I think that grammar and, you know, even something as simple as punctuation, I think there's such a rigidity around that, you know, and around language in general. And I wanted to strip the story of that. I wanted to strip it of that. And I wanted it to just shine for what it is. So.
Beautiful. Well, good luck with that. Certainly, we definitely can't wait. I'm going to have a signed copy myself, of course, but can't wait to see that. And I think as a treat to get ready to wrap up here, I think you have a piece to share with us today, right? And I think this is my favorite.
Yeah. So I have it here. This one is called Sweetness, and I wrote this one several years ago, and this one was definitely inspired by my grandmother. A lot of stories are inspired by my grandmother. She was just a very Brazilian woman, very spiritual. I think it's because of her that I'm on the path I'm, you know, at least in part because of her, that I'm on the path I'm on today. So I'll start reading.
Okay, great.
Come a little closer. See that I'm 5 years old again. I'm standing in the middle of a plain, breathing in a world I haven't seen for more than 20 years. This is my grandma's childhood home, where horses canter along dusty roads and stray dogs come up to lick you, and cornfields stretch for miles and miles beneath the sky the color of peace. I am a carioca, child of Rio de Janeiro, but Campos, this place, has always been my secret paradise. I begin to run across the plain, and I pick up speed until I'm behind. In the distance, a band house slumps like an old woman. When I near it, I step across the threshold and gasp. An ancient tree has taken the middle of the room, its leaves, like surrounding the tree, are twittering birds and moss, autumn leaves from years past. It's then that I see her sitting on a carved out seat. My grandma. She is a young woman warrior again, beautiful with her Indian cheekbones, hair across her shoulders like others. She pulls and reaches out her hands. They are strong, just like I remember them, and they are also the color of earth. I take them and climb onto her lap. Then I pull her arms around me like a blanket of wool. Inside her embrace, warm, forever warm. Querida mia, where have you been? She asks. Been making my way home, and this is one of my stops along the way, not knowing where the words come from. Va nods like she understands. We sit together with Dean, and I sink deeper into her embrace. Time passes quickly, though. Day becomes night as easily as air becomes, and the full moon presents itself, travels closer and closer until it's just outside the window. When I climb down off Grandma's lap, her eyes fill with tears. She knows something I don't, but I don't ask her. Instead, I use the her smooth brown cheeks. She nods at me, and I know it's okay to touch the moon. I walk toward it and brush my hands across its shoulders. All at once, I with humming light, the blinking fireflies in my blood. I smile and turn toward her. I gesture to the moon and begin to speak. She's looking at me differently. When I follow her gaze, I see that my legs are long and strong, and I now have breasts that would fit my hands. I am a woman, I say, surprised. I glance up and see that she's also aged, and so you are, his face marked with lines, her hair silver feathered. She's beautiful, but I know what this means. She will die again, and so I try to cover her breasts and climb into her lap. She laughs and shakes me away, all the while wiping tears from her. I don't belong on my lap anymore, she says. I don't want to leave you. I kneeling down so that we're at the same level. I grasp her hands and hold them firmly. She sighs and her good toward the moon. Slowly, I turn my face until I'm looking to. On the surface of the moon, a vintage movie is playing, colors soft and dreamy. A long-haired woman smiles while she nurses a baby who suckles mightily, her amber eyes like glowing stars in the night. You see why you need to leave? Emma asks. No, I don't see, I say. So some woman is nursing her child. What does this have to do with anything? It's not just some woman. That's the moment I wake up, and there it is, my belly with its delicate fluid, reminding me that the past, with all its sweetnesses, is about to recreate itself. Okay.
I feel like we shouldn't even say anything more. We should just leave it right there.
Okay.
Beautiful. Beautiful writing. It was a beautiful talk with you today. I am forever grateful for your presence in my life and in this world and in this country. And I'm just thankful that you're out there doing what you do and being who you be.
Thank you, Darcy. Thank you for thinking of me.
Yeah, thank you for this.
Yeah.
All right.
Goodbye.